And okay, and with the whole recycling thing, let me show you where I keep my yarns, because I wanted to talk to you about being organized when you start a new craft. It doesn't matter what it is. I think that being organized helps you keep things in order, and it kind of helps you move towards the goal that you want. For example, if I wasn't organizing my yarns, they probably would have either gotten dirty, B, they would have probably gotten lost, 3, they probably would have gotten unraveled and dusty, you know. So keeping them all together helps me think of different projects that I can use them with, or different color patterns, or just it's just nice to see things organized. Like for me, like keeping things clean and organized like inspire me to do certain different things with it. So yeah, so this is how I keep my yarns. I put them in these bins that I've gotten from my grocery store when I purchased my on-the-go apple slices. I bought these. I think I buy these at Costco in the pack, and as you can see, I didn't even remove the labels or anything, because sometimes they get sticky, and I don't care. As long as I can see my yarns and I can have a 360 view of my yarns. So it doesn't matter how this box is in my shelf or wherever I keep it, I'm always gonna know what kind of items are inside the bag, the plastic bin or whatever. And it was free. I didn't have to spend no money on them, because organization bins or organization items are always going to be pricey, and I think that's one of the reasons why people don't do it, because it takes, first of all, it takes a lot of time. Second of all, it can get really pricey to do. But if you use items from your home and you recycle, it won't be as pricey. And if you start from the beginning, to organize your items, it won't take as much time as if you didn't have them organized and you want to organize yourself. I think if you start little by little, it makes your life easier when you crochet. And also the reason why I also chose these was because they're perforated. Okay, when I cook a lot, and I usually use my air conditioning a lot as well, and what I've noticed is that sometimes I have to open my house windows just to, every so often, to let that kind of like enclosed smell get out of my house, because it's so hot out here where I live. I live in Paris, and it's so hot that sometimes you have to have the AC on like 24/7, because it gets to the hundreds and stuff. So what I do is that I Febreze my yarns every 2 weeks. I open them up and I Febreze them, and then I close it and I'm done. And because they're perforated, you don't get condensation inside the yarns, and they actually dry. So you are not gonna have the problem where some of them are gonna be wet and they're gonna smell like mold, or have those things, or they're gonna smell like closet, because sometimes yarns, depending on the fibers, they pick up like a lot of smells. So yeah, this is one of the reasons that I use these perforated bins. You can get these from your regular store. I've seen them with grapes, I've seen them with strawberries, I've seen them with certain types of produce, and what you do, you just wash them, you let them dry, and then you use them, and they're really good to hold on all your yarns and stuff. And I have other couple ones that I've used, and for example, this one is one of the non-perforated ones, and the reason why I use this one is because I have a lot of my specialty yarns or my stash in here. Like things like, for example, this one's not a specialty yarn. This is a regular Super Saver Brown, but it's very little of it. I've used quite a bit of it, and I only have this little ball, so there's no point of me keeping it with all the other big ones. you know, so I use, you see the little yarns and then my specialty yarns and this and stuff, and I use it with I'm using it with certain projects right now, so I keep them all together in this one. And with this, since I'm not, when I Febreze it, I'll just leave the lid open. I'll just leave the lid open, and I make sure I come and close it and stuff. But the reason why I also chose this particular box that I use is because it's so easy to open. Sometimes I'm crocheting and I need another piece of yarn to embellish or to just do whatever. And this one, you see, look, I'm going to be able to open with one hand. I was able to open with one hand, and I could have my project in this hand with my hook, and I can just open it and close it with one hand, and that's it. And this is the other one that I have. I just barely started, and to be honest, I don't have a big collection of yarn, you know, but whatever I do have, I already started organizing because I do not want to get to the point where I have ball of yarns everywhere and they'll get all dusty or moldy or whatever, or I end up losing yarn balls and I end up finding them like a week later when I clean under my couch or whatnot, you know. And anyways, yarn is expensive. It's, you know, it's not super pricey, but it can get pricey, so it's, you know, it's good to take care of your investment and to take care of your crafts. And you know, just think about it like this, you know, like a ball of yarn can cost you from $3.88 to almost $10 depending on the type. And think about it like this: how many hours or how much money an hour are you making? And you think about, okay, if for example my husband were to get paid $6 an hour or $9 an hour, I'm using almost a third of his hourly wages to buy a ball of yarn. And if you think about it like that, you don't overspend, and you don't, you know, you appreciate what you have more, and you know, the stuff that you do. For example, I try not to go too crazy when I buy, you know, when I buy the balls of yarns. I do always try to get them in special. I never buy things that I'm not gonna use. I try to buy for the project that I'm making. I don't try unless it's like super cheap. Like sometimes I've gotten some other yarns, like I'll show you, like these right here. I purchased, you know, because I got them in special actually at Walmart. They have sometimes a section where people, you know, that they go, they unravel them, or they, you know, they rip the labels because of the way that they handle them and things like that, and they're brand new, so they put it on their clearance section. And I got this yarn for very cheap just because it was very unraveled. I actually raveled it back together, and you know, and I got it really cheap. I think I got it for like less than $2 each skein of yarn, and usually I pay about $3.88 for them. So that was a big score for me, you know. And especially since like this one's I think it's one of the more pricier yarns. I think this one's about almost $5 a skein, because I've seen this type of material for that price. And you know, and I kind of scored on those. And then I got the Super Saver, which is always lovely. And these I'm gonna have a little bit more of a hard time crocheting with because I'm not used to it, and also I don't like the nicer yarns. I know there are some that are very pricey and they're very nice, and when you make hats are very luscious and pretty and stuff. But to be honest, I'm a new crocheter. I'm very new at crocheting, and these types of yarns are you have to know how to crochet to use these yarns, because they get messed up really easily. They're not as stiff, or they don't hold the shape as well as a regular Super Saver. So you have to kind of know what you're doing when you're yarning with this type of yarn. You know, it's very soft, it's very nice, and the colors are very pretty. But for some reason, for me, I always end up splitting these yarns. When I'm crocheting, I get a lot of splits. You know, like I just don't like to deal with it for right now, you know, because I'm not a careful crocheter. I'm barely learning, and sometimes, you know, I get carried away, and sometimes I keep the tension very tight, and I just, you know, I'm barely learning about all of that, and I'm barely getting a sense of, you know, of crocheting. So to me, like, I don't want to spend, and I don't want to deal with the hassle of learning how to crochet with this yet. I will do it later, but not right now. So I'm saving these. I think I'm gonna use this one to make a hat, tails from Sonic. I'm gonna do a hat for my cousin. He likes Sonic the Hedgehog, so I'm gonna try to come up with a pattern for that hat because I haven't seen any in YouTube. I tried so many times to YouTube a Sonic the Hedgehog crochet hat, like the ones that like these little animated hats or whatever, and I haven't found one. I've always found you know, people that sell that pattern, and to be honest, you know, I'm only gonna make one and I'm only gonna use it one time, so I do not want to spend more on the pattern that I'm gonna spend on the yarn. So to me it doesn't make sense for me, so I'm gonna try to put patterns together to make this hat. So I will make a tutorial on that, and I'll post where I got the patterns and what pieces of the patterns I got from, because I think that it's very important to give credit to those who make the patterns, whether they're on blogs or whether it's in YouTube, because it takes time. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort to do them. So I do want to always recognize their work. And like I said, I'm barely starting, so I don't come up patterns of my own because I'm barely new and I'm barely getting the concept. But hopefully I get to that skill level where I can make my own patterns. But as of right now, I'm just making crochet my own. I'm getting patterns and mixing them together. I am improving on certain patterns, well, to my opinion, to my taste. But I'm always gonna post or gonna link, or I'm gonna put on the description box where I got the patterns from and what pieces of the pattern I use and what is my own addition to the pattern. So yeah, and I wanted to talk a little bit about, since I have this ball of yarn out, about starting crocheting and the type of yarns you use. I would seriously recommend to start off with this gauge of yarn. It's a gauge 4, and I think it's a gauge 4, and I think it's a let me see, I think is a, yeah, it's a 4 medium, and they recommend to use a 5.5 crochet hook on them, and I think this is the best size and the best type of yarn to start crocheting with if you're gonna barely learn. It's the Red Heart Super Saver, and the reason why I say is the best kind of yarn because, like I was talking earlier, there's certain types of yarns that are very nice and very luscious and done with very delicate fibers that if you put too much stress on it, it would break on you, it would split on you. And if you're doing a pattern and you make a mistake and you unravel it, oh my goodness, it gets like these curly cues on it and these kinks that even when you crochet it back, you're gonna notice it. It's not gonna be the same. They don't hold the shape well, and you know, when you're barely starting to crochet, you're gonna unravel your project several times. Like that minion hat, I think I tried to do it about 4 times until I got it right. And I think after I did that minion hat, I was so confident with crocheting that I started doing a bunch of other hats. So last Christmas, after I did that hat, I did hats for all my cousins. I did all mini hats for everybody in my family and my husband's family, my nephews and stuff like that. I gave them character hats for Christmas, and they loved them. I think hopefully they appreciate it because I spent a lot of time on them and I made them with a lot of love. But yeah, I was the beanie lady this past Christmas. So yeah, oh, and I gave one to my neighbor too, and she loves it. Her little girl loves that hat. So yeah, this particular yarn, it holds its shape very well. So if you make the project and you unravel it 2 to 3 times, or you know, it actually, the yarn itself bounces back. Even if it gets a little bit tangled, right, you just spritz a little bit of water in it and it pops, and you just go like this and it pops back to its shape. Not in 100%, but most most of it retains it, and when you go back, you don't see the mistakes that you made. You actually, it seems like you didn't make any mistakes, like you didn't unravel it so many times. So this is a great kind of yarn, and then it's very, very sturdy. I keep my tension very tight. Well, I try to now, since I know a little bit more about tension and things like that, I try to loosen my tension more when I crochet, and try to make my crochet stitches more symmetrical, and the same all throughout the pattern. But before, I will make some very tight, or I will make some very loose. It depends, it depends on the day that I was crocheting. For example, if I crocheted one item the same day, everything, all the stitches will come out the same. But if I would put my project down and I will come back to it the next day or something, the stitches will look different for some reason. I don't know, and I think it has to do with the tension, the how tight I crochet and how tight I hold my yarn. So again, like this type of yarn, it's inexpensive, but it doesn't mean that it's bad quality. It's actually very good quality. I like the fact that it's a little bit firm and it holds its shape, but once you wash it, it gets very soft. And when you wear it, it's soft as well. It doesn't feel rough, or it doesn't feel like it's not gonna hold its shape or anything like that. And I don't block my work, because I really don't know how to do it yet. I haven't done up any projects that needs blocking or anything like that, and I think once I start making granny square blankets, I'm gonna have to learn how to do that. But like this particular yarn, once you crochet, that's it. You don't have to do anything special to it. You don't have to block it, you don't have to do nothing to it. You just pop it in your washing machine, and that's it. There's really not that much care. You just don't dry it. I don't dry it. I usually have those retractable hanging tables. So all I do is I just put it flat on the table, and it just dries. And I also usually, I just don't pop them just like that on the washer, especially like the ones that have like these little add-ons and stuff like that. I put them in a bag, in a garment bag, and I just pop them in there with with your delicates or whatever. I just pop it in there, and that's it. And that way I remember not to put it in the dryer. I just get my garment bag and I hang everything to hang dry, and that's it. There's no balls in it. They don't lose its shape. It retains its shape. This is since last Christmas, and it, the horns are still up, the eyes are still good, and it's all okay. What else besides that yarn?